Hey, this is Jaryd Krause, host of the Buying Online Businesses podcast. And in this episode, I'm speaking with Dave Jenyns from Systemology and System Hub. Now, Dave helps people scale their website businesses with great business systems. And he's the best in the world at doing this. And people come to him from all over the world to help them scale their business and make their business even more efficient and more fun to work in for not just the business owner, but also all of the employees. In fact, Michael Gerber even poached him out to help him systemize and publish his revised version of the E-Myth. If you don't know who Michael Gerber is, you should definitely check him out. Now, in this episode, Dave and I speak specifically about why so many people end up going away and buying themselves jobs when they go to buy a website business. And we talk about how not to buy yourself a job, because most people who want to buy a website business want to do so they can have more time to themselves and spend more time with their friends and their family. And we talk about how we can create systems to ensure that we don't buy ourselves jobs. Now, we also talk about why systems are so critical, not just for the workers in the business and the owner, but also the clients and how important it is for their client journey. And the better we make this, the better our business and the better the feedback we get and the better results we get for our clients as well. Also, we talk about when is the actual right time to start creating our systems. Where in our business life is the right time to start creating systems for this business to make sure it is efficient. And we also talk about why we should then create the business systems with the employees, okay? And why, as a business owner, we should not be creating these systems ourselves. Instead, they should be done by the employee who is going to be taking out and completing those tasks. And we talk about why in this episode. Now, this is part one of this episode because Dave and I just go all out with how much value and information there is in this actual episode. So this is part one. Go away, enjoy it, and I'll speak to you on the next one. Today's episode is brought to you by Investors Club. Investors Club is a marketplace for serious buyers interested in proven businesses that aren't listed anywhere else. There is a free membership where you can get access to 14-day-old listings and can purchase due diligence reports for $47 each. Or if you become a paid member, you can get instant access to every single listing, unlimited due diligence reports, no fee escrow services, access to exclusive offers from Investor Club partners, and priority support. Now, sellers do sign a 2-month exclusivity agreement to only list with Investors Club. There are no purchase fees or commission, meaning the seller nor the buyer ever pay commission in any deal. And every due diligence report provides next level metrics to make sure due diligence is far less time consuming, making it quicker for you to seal the deal. Also, Investors Club have a great Q&A support available both for buyers and sellers. I'm a full member myself personally, and a lot of thought and effort has gone into this service. However, there are a limited amount of seats for this membership, so go and check them out at that URL, investors.club. That is investors.club. Hey everyone, and welcome back to another episode of the Buying Online Business podcast. Today, I've got another awesome guest, Dave Jenyns. Thank you so much for jumping on. Dave and I were on episode early when we first started the podcast, on episode 26. And Dave, we've chatted since then. We've had a couple of chats now, and it's always a delight. Always learn something when we chat. So I'm looking forward to allowing you to share your knowledge with everybody who listens in today. Thanks for jumping on.
Yeah, pleasure. So happy to be back. Time seems to fly. I think at the start of just off air, you said it's been about a year. So I can't believe that.
Yeah, crazy. Actually, I think it was probably over a year since we recorded. We've chatted in the meantime. And so you're very heavy into systems, like you're very, very successful in creating systems and helping businesses scale through systems. And you've worked with some pretty amazing people, which we'll talk about shortly too. Today, we really want to talk about those who have bought a website or are looking to buy a website and prevent them from going away and doing the unthinkable of buying a job, because most people are trying to buy a website so they can, have more time with their friends, their family, and do the things that they love. And I've been a victim of this myself. I've just bought another site and another one on top of another one. And I got really, really busy, and I tried to live the travel life but I didn't really have my systems put in place so well. How can we use systems to, eliminate our time as owners and workers in our business and work in the business, not on the business?
Other way around. We definitely want
Sorry,
to
work on the business. Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, the biggest thing, the way I like to think about it is to think of your business as a collection of systems. And there is the sales department, the marketing, the HR, the finance, the management. So there are these different departments in business. And in each of those departments, there are typically a handful of systems that really drive the bulk of that result. And anytime that you're having problems in business, quite often when you really dig into it, you can bring it always back to the systems level. If you have a problem with lead generation or you're heavily dependent in the sales process, then that would give you indications that you will have some problems around your lead generation methods or your sales process. Maybe you're having trouble with clients email you all the time when they're making a purchase or have just made a purchase because they don't know when to expect delivery. Well, maybe you've got a poor client onboarding experience, like you don't have a system that helps to outline appropriate expectations and timelines and things like that. Maybe you're having poor management of your finances. You're trying to juggle, if it's an e-commerce website, you're ordering stock, so you're paying a lot of money out, but then maybe you've got terms for your clients on when you take the money, or you're sitting on a bunch of inventory. So maybe you've got some poor systems around the way that your finances are working. So all problems in business can be related back to the system level. So to free the business owner, the real magic or the key is to identify what are those core systems, get those documented to a point where someone can step in and do that task and deliver it to a particular standard. Once you kind of get that into place, then that's really what opens up and frees the business owner and allows them to kind of step away and allows them to work on the business rather than in the business.
Yeah. So I think a large thing that I've learned from a mutual friend of ours is having a really good dashboard. And that could be similar to what you were mentioning with either your sales and marketing department or your finances department. And if you have all of that in front of you, say, for example, your numbers, if you're an e-commerce business and your sales and marketing for any business, then it allows you to, I guess you're probably best to speak to this, but it allows you to really see what's working in that particular department and put more time and resources, or change a system to make sure you can optimize that department better. Say, for example, if sales and marketing is doing quite well in one area or on one platform, you could create a better system and optimize that. Is that something that you're trying to help businesses do?
So the first step, so I've developed a method I call systemology, which I'm sure we'll reference a few times. The first step in that process is to design what I call the critical client flow. And anybody listening to this episode now can do this and follow along with what I'm going to say. And I think it'll give you tremendous insight. Get yourself an A4 bit of paper. Think about a core product or service that you're selling to a particular target audience. And then starting at the top of the page, list out what are the ways that you generate attention to your business. Maybe you've got SEO, AdWords, maybe you're doing social media, whatever it is, list at the top of the page the ways that you get attention. Working down the page, think about how do you respond to an inquiry that comes in, whether it's answering the phone or responding to an email inquiry. Moving down the page, how do you then sell that client? Depending on what it is, obviously, if you're an e-commerce business, then the sales process is a little bit skinnier because you're wanting to present the product well and get them to add to shopping cart. But if you're delivering an online service or some sort of service, you might have a sales process where you need to qualify them and send out a proposal and then follow them up. Then once the person makes a purchase, then again, just keep working down the page. How do you onboard that client into your world, into your delivery process? Then there's the doing of the work, again, just moving down the page, the delivery side of things, and then finally the handover and trying to get them to repeat or refer. So on an A4 bit of paper, mapping out that journey from start to finish can really give the business owner some key insights on what are the critical systems that are required in the business to deliver that core product or service. So that's kind of stage one. Later in the process, then you identify what is the key metric at each of those different levels. Because yes, for your getting attention level, you will get a certain amount of leads into the business, or you're outreaching to a certain size audience. Then as we move down, we get to the sales process. Well, if you're an e-commerce business, maybe you have a certain number of people that are adding to your checkout, or maybe it's the number of proposals that get issued. You keep working down the number of sales that you make. At each one of these levels in the critical client flow, you want to extract or identify a critical number that ends up on your dashboard. And then what you've done is you've identified, because there's so much data these days and people get overwhelmed when they hop into Google Analytics and there are 60 million things that you could look at. These days, data collection is not the problem. It's the interpretation of the data and then determining what action you will take as a result of that. So you really want to only identify, at least initially, between sort of 5 to 10 metrics that you monitor religiously that is tied to the critical client flow, because we know that is how the business makes money. And then the goal is to make that machine work independent of any particular team member.
Excellent. And so that critical client flow is basically your customer journey. And from what I know, the better that customer journey is, the longer that customer's going to stay with you or rebuy and work with you. And they're going to become, if it's really good and it's tight and the system is excellent, they can, move over into like ambassador stage and become an advocate of your brand and your business and help you grow in that sense. So have you seen, like you said, data collection, we don't need any more data. We're overflowing with data and it can confuse us with what to nitpick and do in terms of creating a good system. Have you found that if you go over the board by optimizing too much or creating your system to be too heavily optimized in a sense that there's too many steps going on and it takes away from that customer journey, that your business can become affected, or that customer journey and that flow can become affected? Because I know that some people that are very mechanical, like your good mate Michael Gerber talks about, that they can go away and put too many steps in and try and make it some harsh bends in that customer journey and take away from that experience. Do you find that can happen when we systemize too heavily?
There's a few key insights you touched on there. Firstly, this idea, I always say that complexity is the enemy of systemization.
I like it.
So you want to make sure that your process is as simple as possible, because the simpler it is, the easier it becomes to execute to a very high standard, which then ends up getting a great result for your client, which keeps them coming back and purchasing from you and referring their friends and family. So not only that, it makes it even easier to systemize, which then makes it easier to plug in other team members, which then makes it easier to scale, which then makes it more profitable and potentially, putting more money in your pocket. So it's definitely, people tend to overcomplicate things. I see this, like this is a huge warning for people purchasing website businesses. I see this all the time because oftentimes they're interested in the tech and they might use something like Zapier that fires triggers that, anytime someone sneezes in the business, it sets up a task here and automates an email there and orders its inventory over here, and it's connected through Zapier and their shopping cart, and everything's all automated. I think it's great to get to automation, but you don't necessarily want to start there. You should start with simplicity, and we call it human automation. Figure out simple systems that can be followed by potentially offshore staff where you get, good value for money, and it can be executed, and hone and improve it and make sure that it's rock solid. There's no point in trying to automate something that might be broken. And a great example of this, I see Google potentially, what you would think would be the most automated company in the world. They're super tech. They actually approach it in the same manner that I talked about, where they first do it manually before they automate something. So when they are thinking about changes to their search engine and they're thinking about changing the algorithm to improve the search results, what they end up doing first is they come up with this thesis or this idea of how they want to improve it. They might come out with a white paper. It oftentimes gets converted into their quality guidelines, search quality guidelines. And then they have manual reviewers who apply that thinking to real world sites to get the result and then confirm, hey, yes, this change improves search results. Now they take that idea and then they roll it into the algorithm. And then it becomes part of the machine. So if it's good enough for Google, the biggest sort of tech company in the world here, and they're obsessed with building machines that automate things, but they still start with the manual first. So my biggest suggestion is simplicity, and the optimization of your systems and your processes is actually best saved until last. My final stage in the systemology process is actually optimize. But you have to get through extracting, organizing first and getting everything set up before you start those tweaks. The final point I'll make on that is it leads to something you said earlier, which is changes in one area actually end up affecting another area, maybe downstream. So if you're making changes in your sales and marketing, the way that you're generating leads and the target audience you're going after, that could dramatically impact the bottom of the critical client flow, how possible it is for them to refer or repeat. Similarly, when it comes to the delivery of your product or service, if you've got poor delivery and they don't have a good experience, they're not going to come back. So you actually find that all of these systems are interdependent. So once you get a base level down, what you want to be thinking about is problem identification, solving it with a systems-based solution so it's solved perpetually. So you only have to solve the problem once and you're continually improving the machine. That's where the business owner does the most work, and that is working on it rather than in it.
I love that you mentioned the human effect. I want to get to touch on to like how important it is to use human beings in your business rather than just have it super clunky and super tech. But before we do, I want to touch on the sales and marketing and the critical flow through one system to the next, because I think this is super important for everybody who owns a business, not just an online business, to really understand. And I've noticed in my own businesses that if I have a better experience, a sales journey through sales and marketing, they're going to see that my product or service is more valuable. And that means that psychology of them seeing that as more valuable means they're going to get better results and they're going to like the product or service better, which means it moves on to the next process or sales or system where you could be asking for a testimony or a case study or for some feedback. It's just a lot easier for them to provide that if you've done an excellent service or have an excellent product. And that really starts at the top, right? Like you say, if the sales and marketing is like, all right, let's just rush them in and we'll get some money in the door. And when we've got them in the door, that will make their experience better. But if you start from the top, it's just so much easier, right? Down the line.
Definitely something that we see particularly in the online space, because there are so many different ways to market and generate leads. This is quite a common thing where someone gets quite strong at their marketing, but then they're oftentimes poor on the delivery. And particularly, I used to own a digital agency, and that was something that I saw with a lot of our competitors. They were great at getting clients in the door, but then when it came to doing the work, they were actually pretty poor because they spent and invested so much energy into that marketing side of things. And you really do need to master multiple areas of business, and it's the way that it all fits together, which then really, I actually think if you're going to start anywhere, you're going to start first on your product and service and making sure that that's delivered to a high standard. Think about someone like Elon Musk. He focuses on building a fantastic product, because when you do that, people talk and refer and he gets a rabid following. Like, yes, he's great at marketing, but they also don't run big ads. Like, they're not on the Super Bowl. They're not doing that type of marketing. He focuses more first on great product delivery.
Which also in turn makes your marketing easier too, right?
Yeah.
Because your product is so good and so superior. Like he's done no marketing for this Cybertruck thing and he's just
Yes.
put it out and the news and the press have gone crazy over it because, it's something big and interesting and it's going to be a great product.
And your marketing, your best channel is the people who will refer business to you. So your raving fans. And the more that
Mm.
you focus on smashing that experience and delivering an awesome product or service, that part of your marketing is some of the best form of marketing, that word of mouth.
Yeah, exactly. So let's talk about the human effect and creating systems and starting systems. Now, when would be the best time for a business to start, creating systems? Was
Yeah.
it with one person, kind of the business owner? Hey, I'm going to try and create this system myself. And then if I get too busy, I put somebody onto that system and they optimize it. What's the best sort of process?
Yeah, sometimes it depends a little bit on the business and the business owner and what it is that they're building. My general response is once you've got more than a few team members, because if
Hmm.
it's just you, the business owner, there's typically not a huge amount of leverage that will come from installing the systems. And oftentimes, if you're so busy focused on building the systems, that's getting in the way of you taking your product to market, improving that product to market fit, getting the feedback, getting the results, making sales. Like there's a lot of things that need to be done in business. So you have to get a little bit of traction. That said, if you get yourself a virtual assistant, you'll need to direct them and get them doing tasks. So again, depending on where you get your virtual assistant as well, I find in a lot of emerging economies, a lot of them are very process driven. So they actually thrive when they're given a system or a process, or you can train them on how to create that system or process. So when I mean, the new book Systemology, I actually wrote it just as much for the business owner as for their staff as well, because you want to have the staff read it and they need to be the ones driving the systems forward. It's not always the business owner. Oftentimes, the business owner is one of the worst people to be creating systems and processes. They're busy, they've got lots to do, they've prioritized other things. The business owner knows it's important, it's very rarely urgent, so it stays on that to-do list and they never get around to it. So I would say you need at least one or two staff. You've got to have someone who can take it and run with it. And then you need a way to really direct them and say, this is what I want to have done. And it's about extraction of your brain. Get comfortable with screen recording videos. And then from there, you develop, some bullet points and checklists and some systems that can then be followed.
Love it. And now I know why that you created that. You've written this book, Systemology, for just as much as the business owner as those who are going to be running those systems as well. If you can't tell, guys, I've already read the manuscript and it's absolutely excellent. All right, so I'm going to pause this episode right there because this was a long conversation that I had with Dave and then so much value to go away and break down and for you to digest. So I'm going to split it into two parts. So part one was where we're talking about why you should be buying a business with systems or creating systems in your business so you're not buying yourself a job. So you can actually enjoy your business and have more fun in your business and work on your business rather than in your business, which is what Michael Gerber came out with. And Dave has actually worked with Michael Gerber to go away and publish his E-Myth revised book. Now, in this episode, we talked about, not just why it's important to have systems in your business, but why it should be important for your employees to run through these systems because they're going to have a better job. They're going to enjoy their job more. They're going to be more efficient and they're going to get better results in optimizing your business. And in turn, that's going to allow your clients to get a better service and a better product, which in turn gets better results. That's why it's so important for you to understand this first part of the episode. Now, Dave has written a book called Systemology, which is out now. It is available. There is a link in the show notes that you can go away and grab. But before you do that, I would suggest you listen to part two because part two is even more profound and even more value in this part 2 of the episode, because in part 2, we talk about how you can get your employees to really buy into creating systems and why it's better for them and why they actually want these systems, right? Why they're deep down craving these systems. Now, I share a story with you about my mum and why she needed systems in her business when she started working from home. Now, we also talk about how you learn these systems and you take these systems with you to every business that you run or own. Because once you learn a system, once you learn IP, you can't unlearn it, right? And it's really good to be able to take that knowledge, that education, that skill to another business. So this education never leaves you. We also talk about how good systems are to not only de-risk your business, but they allow you to make more money and make your business more valuable by selling it for a higher multiple, because it is a less riskier business and it's easier to run with less employees and less, owner work yourself. We also talk about how Dave was actually poached by the godfather of systems himself, Mr. Michael Gerber, who wrote the E-Myth, where Dave actually helped him publish that book. We also talk about more about Dave's book, Systemology, in this episode. And I just feel it's such a valuable episode that you should not miss before you go away and purchase Dave's book and get profound experiences and profound results in your business. So hang out for part 2. It's coming, and I'll speak to you then.